Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and this is News and Week in Review, where we're going to dive into a bunch of assorted news pieces, a few of, well, the videos of the week and things like that, but also, this week's topic of the week is going to be about Israel and Gaza. I say that now just to, I guess if this is not a video for you, you can skip it, or jump around, or any of those things, but I figured I'll give you a heads up now rather than catching you off guard mid-video. But we'll get into that soon enough. In any case, this is the News and Week in Review. We're going to dive into all the usual, not the usual stuff, some of the usual stuff, some not of the usual stuff, specifically leaving some things out too, because I just don't have the, we'll get into it. Let's start off though with news, starting off with a few things, and I don't have my tablet and screens and all those things going for some of these, because whatever, but we're going to go ahead and get into it. But starting off with Planet Unknown is coming to Board Game Arena, as is Hadrian's Wall, which is phenomenal because the more of the games that I already love that show up in Board Game Arena, the better for just, well, me personally. That's what I'm interested in. I mean, I play games on Board Game Arena for a variety of reasons, but I would say around 20% of my plays are on Board Game Arena, around 20% of my plays are solo, maybe around 25% of my plays are on Board Game Arena, and then the rest are, you know, whatever. I just like looking at the various metrics and stats, but I play board games on Board Game Arena because it's easy. It's easy to play the games I love because so often I'm playing games for a sense of commitment, in a sense of, you know, sometimes it's commitment, sometimes it's game night, sometimes it's this. There's all these different things that go into what games I get played, and Board Game Arena is an opportunity to play the games I love more. So it's not all my plays, but I get to get a few extra plays. You know, DEI's in Board Game Arena, I played a little more often. Castle Burgundy's there, boom, you know, I got 30 places in my belt this year, or more than that. I think I have like 50 places in my belt of Castle Burgundy alone, although many of that's from the deluxe edition of Awakened Realms as well, so it's a mix of different things leading into it. You know, games like Feast for Odin, played a whole lot in person, played a whole lot on Board Game Arena, but then also on Board Game Arena I end up playing a lot of games that aren't games I feel they need to own, because they're there, and they don't have all the games I love, and so I play a lot of games that I wouldn't necessarily own, but I'm happy to play it online. Games like Ticket to Ride, games like, well, Azul, I finally got rid of Azul, games like, there's lots more. But either way, my point is I've been enjoying Board Game Arena quite a bit to give me more plays, always of games that I enjoy, sometimes of games that I love, and Hadrian's Wall and Planet Unknown are both games I love that I'm thrilled to have join the platform, along with, I feel, something else that was recently announced. I mean, I'm really enjoying Force Shuffle over on there, as well as DEI, as well as a bunch of other games. Either way, from there we have Medici. Medici's getting reprinted by Steamforged Games this time. It's a little outside Steamforge's usual wheelhouse. This is a hardcore Reina Knizia Euro, which is not what I typically expect to see published from Steamforged, but here we go. It's getting a reprint from Steamforged. Happy to see it. I feel like Reina Knizia is like kind of the designer who, like, all of his popular titles are being reprinted by one company or another, and they're all over the spectrum as far as the different companies putting out his games, but either way, it works. Now, from there we have Armello. Armello? Armello? I don't remember how to pronounce it, but there's a video game. I think it's called Armello, or it's Armello. I don't remember exactly what it is. I'll have a link to it down below, of course. But they're turning that into a board game, which is funny because that was always compared to a board game. That was like a video game that was more of a board game feel, similar to Slay the Spire, which then, of course, became a card game. And we have Armello becoming a board game, which I'm very excited to see because I think it'll be a very cool project to see. I think it'll be a very cool project just from, I played it a little bit way back in the day when it first came out. People were talking about it. It's been a while since I played it, though, and I'm curious to see how they implement turning it into a board game. Ascent news, there is a ton of things, but I have not put together my Ascent catalog of news yet. I will say that Chip Theory Games did seem to have their Too Many Bones Brass Mags on display, so that's definitely a thing that will be happening. I'll try to include a link to that down below. We also have Adventure Together is putting out you saw it this past week. I had a unboxing of a game called Source, or a game called, there's a few games to it. Depends if you call it the system or the individual game, but they're putting out a game system. And they're going to be printing 3D printed pre-colored miniatures. So they're leaning into it. I think they're one of the first companies to go ahead and do that for a board game. So I'm very intrigued. I'll include a link to it down below. What they're doing seems very cool, seems very ambitious too, and I haven't played any of the games yet. I've only seen the components. Components look great. I haven't actually played the games yet, but I am excited for that. And then in somewhat sad news, we have Tranquility the Ascent officially is not delivering. Yet one more, game, unfortunately, in the crowdfunding space that is just like officially nail in the coffin, not showing up. You will not get your hands in it. It's not going to be showing up at your table. That's going to be Tranquility the Ascent, unfortunately. A game I backed, putting it under, between this and Rally Dirt, or Dirt Rally, whatever it was called, Rally Man Dirt. Between this and that, I think that's at least 2 confirmed games I'm definitely not getting from crowdfunding. Although technically Rally Man Dirt, there still is a possibility that the warehouse will send it. There's still a thing in there. But in the case of Tranquility and Ascent, I don't think it's been printed or all or anything, and so it's another crowdfunding failure. Not a big one, not on the scale of a 6 Siege, but yet another small little dent in the confidence of, well, consumers on crowdfunding, wondering if they will or won't get their game or how that works. And even though it's still mostly a safe space, still those that 1% grows to 2%, grows to 3% every day, and so it is one of those areas where I like crowdfunding. I hope it continues to exist well. Obviously, working for GameFund as well and BuySpot as well, but it's sad to see. It's sad to see failures ruining it for those who are doing it well, who are doing it right, and the failures do ruin it. From all the people who bank Tranquility, however many there are, let's pretend there were 1,000 people. I don't know how many there were, but from those 1,000 people, is a guaranteed at least one person who's not backing crowdfunding campaigns anymore because of it. There might be 2, there might be 7, whatever the numbers are. It adds more and more to the people who are like, I'm done with crowdfunding, I'm going to stick with retail, which is fine. I think retail is great too. I just think crowdfunding it is a very useful tool, not a perfect one, with flaws, and it's a shame to see these things get in the way. But with that, we're going to go from a downer, end in week in review to the news part to more downers. Israel and Palestine. That's going to be the topic of the week this week. Yay me. No, I'm not the victim here. I'm not the victim. I'm sorry. I'm not the victim here. This is one of those things that's impossibly hard to do. No matter how you do it, it's impossibly hard to do, and you're never going to make anyone happy. But that's true no matter what. I've already had people this week who are upset that I haven't talked about Israel and Gaza yet, although there's reason for that. We'll get into that shortly. And I guarantee you there'll be people watching this video who are upset that I'm talking about it now. Whether they're upset that I'm talking about it or upset with what I have to say, and that's fine. You're never going to make everyone happy. When you are someone in the public space in any way, shape, or form, even if you're like an H-list celebrity in the board game space, you're never going to make everyone happy. It's just the nature of numbers. You can't. And so what I do encourage, if you're another content creator or just a human being in general, what I do encourage is do what feels right for yourself. Because you're not going to make everyone happy. Now, there is a caveat to that. The caveat is if everyone's telling you you're doing it wrong, if everyone is sitting there saying you're screwing up, maybe you should take that into account into your life in general, just because you're not always right. I'm not always right. No one's always right. But I understand anyone who is either unhappy that I'm talking about this at all. I understand if you're watching this and you're not unhappy that I'm talking about it, but you're unhappy about what I say. I understand all of that. And if that makes you reevaluate whether you want to be here, whether you want to say subscribe, whether you want to stick around for the conversation around board games, I get it. I do. It's easy for people to say, well, just separate one viewpoint versus another. It's easy to say that, but it's not always so simple. Someone who you like in any way, shape, or form. I watch YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTubers. If you like anyone in any shape or form and they say something that goes against your core beliefs, it's hard. It's hard to look past that and be like, no, but I'm still on the same page even though we disagree on this one thing. And depending on who you are, you might disagree with me, you might not, but I just don't care right now. I mean, I wish you agree with me. I just don't care about the fact that I can't. It's so much easier to stay out of these things. It's so much easier to not say something. It's so much easier to just not ever get involved. But also sometimes it's better to just get involved. Sometimes it's better to say something. Sometimes it's better to take a side. And it sucks. But Israel and Palestine, Israel and Gaza. Sorry while I collect my thoughts. There's a lot of things about the entire Israel-Palestine conflict. It's been going on for centuries, centuries or more than decades. It's been going on for a long time, as far back as the Bible and everything, and it's been going on for a long time. And I'm not going to try to get into that too much here. And the reason I'm not, to be very clear, the reason I'm not getting into it here is not because I don't have an opinion. I do have an opinion. I have an opinion that Israel is the one who has the right to be there. I believe that's my belief overall. I guess I don't want to get into it, but I don't want to not get into it as a cover for an opinion. No, I do believe that Israel is mostly in the right on most of these issues. But I acknowledge that it's complicated. It is complicated, it is not clear. There's a whole conversation about, what right does anyone have to the land, who pushed out who has an initial claim to the land, how far back do you go, when do you start counting claim to any land, how far back does it go, and what's happened along the way. Those things are complicated. I for sure acknowledge that. And I'll also say that even though I do have an opinion, I'm not averse to being wrong. I'm not averse to it. I think that life is, sometimes maybe I'm working with not enough information. So I guess my overall point is the overall conversation around Israel and Palestine, for the general conflict and its existence, I do have opinions. I don't want to shy away from those opinions, but I also don't want to get into it because it's so much more complicated. A big part of it depends on when you decide history starts, and then going from there. And everyone's going to have a different opinion, and everyone's going to have different things comments along the way, and everyone can point to things that each side has done wrong, because I guarantee you, I believe fully that each side has done things wrong along the way. Each side has made missteps in the way they've handled that conflict that have only made things worse. I have no problem saying that whatsoever. So I guess that part, it's not that I don't have an opinion, it's that I acknowledge that those things are a lot more nuanced and complicated, and so the point here is not to take a hardline stance, but nor is it to avoid it entirely. I don't want to avoid it. What I am taking a hardline stance on, the reason I am talking about this, is because frankly it's disgusting to see the things that people are willing to justify under the guise of it being anti-Israel and not being anti-Semitic. I don't like crying anti-Semitism. I don't. You've been watching me. If you've been watching me, you may have watched me for 4 years now. We're closing in on 4 years on YouTube. It's been a long time. And whoever's been watching me, whether you've been watching me for a week, whether you've been watching me for 4 years, I appreciate it. I really do. And you've obviously seen that I'm a religious Jew. Like, if you've been watching my content, I don't shy away from that, but nor do I embrace it either. I'm not here to talk about my religion. I'm here to talk about board games. My religion is a part of who I am. It's an intrinsic part of who I am. It's a core part of how I operate on a day-to-day basis, but it is not the thing I'm talking about on camera. I love books. I love reading. And incidentally, that shows up in a conversation here or there. Not because I'm embarrassed about it, but because it's not the thing I'm here to talk about. And so despite the fact that I am publicly and clearly and obviously Jewish, I just don't get into it much. And I don't like calling things anti-Semitic, even when there's every excuse to do so. I remember a particular time, maybe a year into YouTube, where I had a live stream, one of my first live streams, before they were more regular on the channel, and I had 30, 40 commenters jumping in, shouting anti-Semitic slurs left, right, and center, trying to hijack the live stream. I made Roy Candidate from the Dice Tower mod. Made some other people mods. I just threw them on, and people just started banning people left and right while I tried to continue having the live stream. The things said were disgusting. They were abhorrent. They were despicable. But I don't even think it's anti-Semitism. I really don't. I genuinely don't think it's anti-Semitism. I think that it's a bunch of kids who thought it was a fun thing to do. Kids could be, 12-year-olds. They also could be 18-year-olds. I don't know who it was, but either there was 40 people who are anti-Semitic and they thought that the best way to express that was to hijack a live stream, or there's a bunch of kids who are a bunch of trolls who thought that was funny, who don't understand that that's not a good joke. And statistically speaking, there's more stupid people than there are anti-Semites. I just assume even a blatantly anti-Semitic thing on the surface, I don't even assume that was anti-Semitism. I don't like calling, if someone doesn't like me, if a publisher doesn't want to work with me, and these things happen. It's so easy for people to shout something as a victimhood status, but I'm not interested in that. I don't want to call something anti-Semitism just because it could be. But I think it's hard. It's hard to not look at the reaction to the way to what Hamas did, and to the way Israel responds. It's hard to not look at the way some people are reacting to that and to not call it anti-Semitism. And I'm not even willing to say it's surface level anti-Semitism. I'm not even willing to say it's something that they espouse as a genuine thought where they hold it in their heads that I hate Jewish people. I'm willing to say it's subconscious. But the shocking way that people react, not everyone, mind you, but there are people who react in a way that is baffling, that they would not react that way in any other circumstance. And you're able to paint it as, hey, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. I'm anti the government of Israel. And make no mistake, there are times where you should be anti whatever the government of Israel is doing. I'm not trying to say that you can't be critical of Israel, of the government, of the army. I'm not trying to tell you can't be critical or you're anti-Semitic. But there's lines. Hamas, as part of its charter, calls for the destruction of Israel, calls for the murder of Jews. That's its charter. This is the leadership of Gaza. There's not a conversation about freedom fighters here. That's not what's happening. The intent is to murder. The intent is to kill. This is not a secret. This is part of their charter. Like, if you... What's that? There's a famous quote, like, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. Hamas publicly calls out what their goals and ambitions are. And then they go and they murder. There's no question whatsoever that there has been murder left, right, and center. Murder of innocents, hostages taken. Like, the things that they have done, the atrocities committed this past week are absolutely insane. And it's not the first time, not by a long shot. It just happens to be the worst. So congratulations. We finally got to a point where some people are willing to acknowledge that, not some people, many people are willing to acknowledge the atrocities being committed and how horrific they are. There's a lot of accusations being made of things being done. I'm specifically only calling to the ones that I know for a fact have happened, as opposed to there's lots of accusations about rape, but a lot of those as well have been eyewitness, lack of pure guaranteed content, and so there's, like, I don't want to get into the debate of what did or didn't happen, but atrocities have been committed, there's no question. When you march into a festival, when you murder innocents, when you take a woman and stuff her in the back of her pickup truck, spit on her body while you march around, taking videos of it while her legs clearly broken at an angle, when you walk into a house and murder a grandmother, when you murder a grandmother for the sake of trying to, like, prove a point, calling their family, getting it on camera, the atrocities committed here are not insignificant. It is brutal. It is not okay. And Israel has a right to defend itself. And I understand. So first of all, a few things. Before we get to Israel defending itself. Anyone who in any way is okay with any of the actions taken by Hamas, under the name of it being freedom fighters, under the name of it being, well, they're oppressed and this is what they have to do, that is a garbage anti-Semitic stance to no end. That's not okay. It's simply not okay. The idea that someone can justify any form of what is being done as some form of freedom fighters, it is simply not okay. Substitute any other country, any other civilization, any other population with the idea that call them oppressed. I don't care. Say that they're oppressed civilization. Say that they should be freedom fighters. But if anywhere else, if someone did those things, it would be completely and totally called out for what it is. You cannot defend those actions without really, truly taking a look at yourself and wondering what your motivations are. The crowd of protesters outside Sydney, Australia, outside the Opera House, chanting, "Gaz the Jews, Gaz the Jews." Like, what's the freedom fighter argument there? What is it? What does it take before you start to realize that there is an actual conversation here in which the desire of murdering Jews is something that people want? It's something that, like, again, historically speaking, if you grow up Jewish, if you're watching this, if someone who's Jewish, the idea that you live your entire life understanding and knowing that you are a people that have been hunted for your entire civilization. It is something you're told your entire life. They don't want us. We're not accepted. They will look for opportunities to hurt us, I don't like living my life as a victim. I don't live my life as a victim. I'm also fortunate enough that I'm not currently the victim here. There are others. There are hundreds of lives lost because they were victims. Because whether you want to wear the mantle of victimhood or not, sometimes you will still be sought after for what you are. Every Jewish person knows that to some extent they are other. Whether it's something you feel 1% of the time, whether it's something you feel 50% of the time, it will be different for everyone. It will be different for everyone. But if you're Jewish watching this, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. And it's not something that manifests in many of our lives day to day. but there are times where you see it. It should not be hard to call Hamas terrorists. It should not be hard to condemn their actions. It should not be hard to be able to hold a nuanced take. You should be able to criticize Israel, to criticize their actions, to criticize whatever you want, while also saying that something is terrorism and something is not okay. There should not be a conversation in your head where you can justify anything Hamas has done. Their charter calls for the destruction of Jews. Believe them. Believe them. As far as Israel's response, again, we start moving back into nuanced territory. What is an appropriate response? How do you defend yourself when innocents will die in the process? Because that is 100% the conversation. Israel has a right to defend itself. I will stand by that statement from today until tomorrow. If you are attacked, if your people are being murdered, you have a right to defend yourself. It shouldn't be a complicated conversation. The complicated conversation, which I do acknowledge, is what does a right to defend yourself mean? Well, what you tell me. You tell me if you're living in a city where you are being killed by people who want your death. They've listed that they want your death. If that's the current situation, and the only way to stop that is to hurt innocents along the way, not with intent, with the intent to try to avoid it. Announcing what you're doing, how you're doing it, to try to get them out. When Hamas leadership calls for Gazans to remain in place so they can turn world sympathy to their side through the death of their people, that is not Israel trying to hurt innocents. That's Hamas trying to weaponize public opinion so that Israel cannot defend itself. I acknowledge it's complicated. I acknowledge that any form of resistance that results in any innocent deaths is heartbreaking. I acknowledge that. But I don't think you can ever tell someone, hey, by the way, you should be attacked and you should sit still. You should sit still. You can't respond. Because you know what? They're hiding behind innocence. So they can keep doing what they're doing. They can keep murdering you. They can keep hurting you. But you can't defend yourself. If someone's being attacked in a way that results in murder, in death, you have to tell that person what they can actually do. You can't just tell them you can't respond. If Hamas is the source of so much death and suffering on both sides, at a certain point it makes sense to have a conversation about what lengths do you go to wipe out Hamas once and for all. But I recognize that it's complicated. I do. But ask yourself what you'd be doing if your friends were being murdered by freedom fighters. Call them freedom fighters if it makes it easier. If your friends, if people you knew were being murdered for something they had never done, and the world was shouting at you that you can't respond, that you can't engage, that you can't defend yourself because someone else is going to get hurt along the way. So you have to sit there for the next 10, 20, 30, 100 years and continue to watch it happen. That's not a game plan. That's a death sentence. Part of the reason that there were no videos or conversations about this the whole week until now is because of when this happened. This happened on the holidays. Saturday, Sunday, last week was a holiday. It's offline both days. Which means by the time I logged on Sunday night, I was just picking up what was going on. I filmed a video, still looking into what's going on, and all the rest of the videos for that week were already filmed and ready to go. This is the first video that's being filmed. Second video, technically, I filmed one. This is the second video that's being filmed since I found out about this. I wanted to find out more. I wanted to process. But also understand that I logged on after Sunday night. I went back online, wondering about a few of my friends, whether they're okay. And was reassured to see that a few friends who lived in these areas that had been attacked, posted, yes, they're safe. But I had to wonder that. I had to wonder which of my friends made it out alive. I recognize life is complicated. I do. I recognize the situation is complicated. But there are certain parts of the situation that shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't be complicated. Terrorism is terrorism. Murder is murder. The things that have been done in the name of the destruction of Israel. If you are someone who's critical of the situation, try substituting any other sovereign state. Try substituting any other oppressed peoples. Because again, you paint the picture the way you want it to be painted. But ask yourself what you'd expect anyone else to do. I get it if this wasn't the conversation for you. I do. I wish... I don't want anyone innocent to get hurt. Anyone. I don't know if that's one of the options on the table. And with that, let's go ahead and go into the week in review. I'm not going to talk about the games I played. I'm not in the mood. Not this week. But we'll talk about the week in review, starting off with this past Saturday. Give myself a minute to adjust. Saturday. This past Saturday, did a review for Roborally. Roborally is be reprinted from Renegade Games, and it's a classic game for a reason, and it's one that I put out a review of it. It's a good game. I liked it. I played the original way back in the day. I haven't played some of the intermediate copies, but I have played this most recent version of it, and I like Roborally without necessarily loving it. I think other games have done the same thing but better since I've last played Roborally. To me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely a fun experience, but definitely one that I think other games do it better. Then later on Saturday, we had a review for Sweet Mess. This is from Pika Games, from Fantasia's sister company. And it's a good game. I like Sweet Mess. I do find it a bit more complicated, a bit more strategic to be a gateway game, and a bit too messy to be a strong Euro game. So for me, that's another 3.5 out of 5. Then on Sunday we had a month in review. Usual month in review, looking back at this past month, going through all the videos, the highlights, the best games, the worst games, the disappointments. If you want to check out any of that, check out Sunday's video. Later on Sunday, I had an IV Games vlog, looking back at a trip. It's a month old, but the IV Games trip for Mythic Mischief, going through it, just going through the good stuff. Mostly thanks to Austin for captioning, and Devin, I think, for getting way too close to the camera, and Austin for taking a tour of the IV offices, because without those videos, I'd have like 8 minutes of footage, and that's not even a vlog. So thanks to those two for the fact that we have a vlog at all. Although I did just recently go to ONEB, Orange Nebula, and I do have vlog footage of that, which should go up soon. We'll see. Should go up soon. Then we have Monday. Monday we had two back-to-back, going through a bunch of crowdfunding campaigns, a whole bunch of fun crowdfunding campaigns. There were a lot out there, some that I'm actually backing this time around. We had Tuesday, we had a Groundbreakers preview. A preview went up on the game Groundbreakers by Professor Meg. Unfortunately, Groundbreakers cancelled for unrelated reasons, seemingly. They posted an update. They were almost funded, and they're like, hey, by the way, even though we're almost funded, some personal things are going on, so we're cancelling for right now, and we'll see what happens next. So I'm curious about that, but Groundbreakers unfortunately canceled. Then on later on Tuesday, we had a gameplay of Fire Tower. This is a sponsored gameplay of Fire Tower from Goliath Games. Goliath Games looks like they're picking up a few games, so they've picked up Fire Tower, they've picked up Honeybuzz. Speaking of which, lastly on Tuesday, we had a preview for Honeybuzz. I've actually done a gameplay of Honeybuzz in the past, but Goliath Games sponsored a preview of the game if you want to check that out. Then on Wednesday we had 7 game reviews I've been pushing off. These are 7 games that I've played a long time ago at different points and just been trying to get tabled and reviewed, and long enough time has gone by that I realized they're not getting tabled and reviewed, and so I did a video talking more first impressions. Some of them did get multiple plays, many of them did not, and so it's more of a first impressions roundup than actual game reviews, but if you want to check that out, a bunch of things have been sitting around for quite some time, from Cactus Town to Dark Gate to whole bunch of things. Then on to, that was Wednesday. Later on Wednesday, we had a review for Magic Rabbit. Really enjoyed that one. Small little game, 3-minute experience of just trying to puzzle things out in a row. Really fun. It's one of those games that's going to be limited in my collection. I can't imagine it sticks around for a long time, but it is very fun in the meantime. So similar to games like Magic Maze, I think they have a life cycle. I enjoy it, I play it, move on from it eventually. So right now, it's still here, but I cannot imagine it's here in a year from now. We'll see. Time will tell. Magic Maze actually stuck around for a long time, so we shall see. Then lastly on Wednesday, we had a Source unboxing. This is that unboxing I mentioned already in the news part, where it's kind of a clearly inspired by HeroScape to a degree, but it's its own system that's, it's meant to be a sandbox, build your own game kind of situation. But that is Source unboxing coming on. That was on Wednesday. Then on Thursday we have the 10 best factions. This is a video I did. It's a collaboration video I did where we went over our 10 favorite factions in all of board games, whether it's Root, whether it's Agricola, whether it's Caverna, I think it's Caverna, not Agricola, I don't think we had Agricola, whatever games there are, the 10 favorite factions, just going over those two and comparing our notes. We crossed over on Root as a game that we talked about, but we didn't even have the same favorite faction in Root, so check that out if you want to see some of the favorite factions in games, well, board games, I guess. Then on Friday we had a review for Fang and Flame. This one I gave a 3.5 out of 5. It is a cooperative game where you control a bunch of dragons across an episodic experience. That one's currently on Kickstarter, you can check that out, but gave Fang and Flame a 3.5 out of 5. Some elements I really enjoyed. I also found some elements to be a little bit repetitive and didn't necessarily iterate as fast as I wanted, so there are some degrees of repetition every single game as you unbuilt and rebuilt your deck to go through the same experience. Then we had, later on Friday, we had a ecosystem review. This is actually ecosystem and the smaller, there's an ecosystem and this ecosystem like aquatic or whatever it is. I don't remember the name of it. It's coral ecosystem, maybe coral reef. Either way, 2 ecosystem games. It's coming to from Genius Games, and both of them are basically just like little point scoring optimizations where you're drafting cards, trying to line up different things in your ecosystem. Fast playing, fun systems. Really enjoy this one. Small box kind of system. I don't know if it's like, lifetime kind of longevity. I don't think it is. I think it will eventually leave my collection. But for right now, I'm enjoying it, and I do think it is a fun point scoring game where I do have a few small critiques on it, but overall, I definitely enjoy it. And there's also Ecosystem Savannah. Speaking of which, later on Friday, we also had 8 reviews in 8 minutes, including that 3rd ecosystem game, and a whole bunch of other games, just going through one at a time. Just quick minute reviews or minute reviews for 8 reviews in 8 minutes on Friday. That brings us to today. Today we're gonna have a few things. We're gonna have a review for Skyrockets and a review for Atlantis Rising Monstrosities. So if you want to check those out, you can check those out. That'll be going up today. And then next week we'll have a bunch of videos, including we'll have a video on crowdfunding. I don't know the exact title of this video yet, but something along the lines of like backers aren't entitled or crowdfundings. I don't know. I have to figure out. You'll see the video. Should be going up Sunday. It's a fun little conversation around backers, crowdfunding, the state of crowdfunding, whether things are worth it, aren't worth it, and effectively why backers are not entitled, because I'm responding to someone on Facebook who said they were entitled, and I decided to make an entire video about it because I was annoyed by the comment. And so that's basically that situation. And then we also have coming up next week, we should also have a Divinity Original Sin unboxing. That game has finally shown up in whatever state it finally is in. I've actually already played through the tutorial, and we'll talk more about that as well. But Divinity Original Sin unboxing went up, well, going up next week. And to that end, lastly, we have the games on the table. As usual, a bunch of games I'm hoping to play this week. We have Whistle Mountain or Apiary. I think I'm going to be playing one of these this week. I don't know if I'll get to both, but hopefully at least one of them. And then ones I definitely plan on getting to, we have, well, plan on getting to versus actually getting to is a different story. We have the Gilded Realms. We have the Gilded Realms, previously known as Antares Kingdoms. That's going to be launching on Kickstarter soon. We have Wizards of the Grimoire, along with all the expansion stuff, so the new expansion stuff for the game. And then General Orders World War II. This recently just landed from Osprey Games, designed by David Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, from Undaunted fame, as well as other games. But General Orders, a 2-player head-to-head game system that I'm very intrigued to dive into. And with that, that has been your Week in Review. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for bearing with me through a tough topic, or if you skipped it because it wasn't a topic for you, good job as well. Know your limits, know who you are, and all that. But until next time, I hope you have a good one.